Hi guys, and welcome to another video. So this is the first lore video we're doing since the dungeon series has kind of ended, and we're just cracking straight into the Asura week. So last time we had Silvari week. I wanted to do Asura week during the final dungeon, however it ended up we didn't have enough time. I've had a little bit of a look through the blog post. I know that we've at least got the Grawl that we can do as well, so I might do like Asura week, look one of the articles from there, and then go to Grawl week and then back to Asura week, something like that. That could be quite interesting. I don't know. In any case, we are going to be starting off with Asura week this time. The footage in the background is our first challenge mission we did. It was really quite cool. It doesn't seem like as many people are interested in doing the challenge missions as they were with the dungeons, and that's totally understandable because honestly the challenge missions don't give you much. You will be able to see our numerous attempts. We went in there a fair few times. We had a bit of a break between one of them because that was when the beta was announced, so I wanted to get a quick video out on that. But yeah, those were our numerous attempts at breaking the daily record. You can see how well we did in the end. I'm not going to spoil it, and a lot of it unfortunately will be us fighting in a single room because we thought we kind of had a decent thing figured out there. It didn't work too well in the end, I don't think, because they seem to stop spawning after a while. But anyway, so that's what's going on in the background. And we're going to be talking about the Asura. So Asura Week was announced back in September of 2011. So on September 8th, David Campbell, who's been doing quite a few of these blog posts, if you notice, they've been posted. He came out with a blog post that said, "They may be small, but they think big. They're the Asura, a race of diminutive geniuses whose inventions, experiments, and research make them a force to be reckoned with in Tyria." Next week we're examining the Asura with 5 days of blog posts, videos, stories and more. It's the exact same thing we saw with the other main races. And yeah, so there should be 2 blog posts I read out properly. There's some really cool concept art here of some of the this was one of the things I really enjoyed. Quite a few of you might know, I get the question a lot. And that's what exactly you're going to be playing in Guild Wars 2. And I think I'll be making a human Mesmer to carry on my main from Guild Wars 1. But I think kind of my new main is probably going to be an Asura. It's not necessarily that I like the way the Asura look, or that I like they've kind of got this comedy factor in their animations and stuff. It's not necessarily that, it's the golems and the architecture of their places within the Tarnished Coast. It's just fantastic. I love that whole aspect of the Asura. So if you're wondering, that's why an Asura is probably going to be my main. I don't know whether I'll like Let's Play on an Asura. I'm kind of tempted to Let's Play all of the races, at least at the start, so we can kind of see what they're all like, but I don't know. But yeah, I'll be definitely playing an Asura, and yeah, it should be awesome to learn a little bit more about it together. So let's just jump into, let's have a look here. The thing is, it's over like 2 pages on the blog, so it's a bit annoying. Yeah, let's jump into, well, the first article was called Asuran Design. I suppose we could have a quick skim here. Should I read this out? I suppose since we're not rushed anymore with the dungeon series, why not just start on Asura Design? You guys would like that, wouldn't you? Alright, so here we go. There was the first post that Asura Week kicked off with Matthew Barrett talking about Asuran Design. He says, "Asura, the little goblin-y, flappy-eared tinkerer creatures. They make magic machines, right? They're tinkerers, yes, but also intuitively powerful masters of the elemental energies surrounding them in the caverns of their native sub-Tyrian world." So yeah, this is pretty good. There's enough lore here. The talents of the Asura carried their civilization through ages of harmonious existence beneath the lands of Tyria, of which we know very little about. Like, these guys really fall into the same trap that the Norn are currently in, and that's that we don't know much about them before Eye of the North came out, not much at all. A lot of the history we learn about these races now is not real history, it's just the gap between Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2. We learn about that kind of history, the 250 years. With both races, we still don't know very much. Like, we don't know much about the Asura, how they lived before they came to the surface. However, during Asura Week, we will learn about a few of their capital cities. I'm pretty sure, anyway, this is in Asura Week. We learn about a few of their capital cities that actually existed in the depths of Tyria, which we never even got to go to in Guild Wars 1, which is really cool. And you can kind of see their naming conventions and stuff there. Like, the only one we really know of is Ratasum, but that wasn't really a capital in Guild Wars 1. We know, obviously, it is in Guild Wars 2. Like, that's their main hub of activity around Ratasum. But there were other places, and you learn about those as we go through the week. The Asura represent a force of explosive change, cutting traditions and forcing adaptation. With no investment in the heritage of the world above, they impose their will without restraint. They apply their technology in ways never before dreamed within their rock warrens, let alone in the lands of the sun. This is really kind of cool. When the Movement of the World came out, it was announced, you know, it had been announced that you could play the Asura, and the Movement of the World had a few paragraphs on each of the races and what they're about and kind of how they're going to be perceived in Guild Wars 2. One of the most prominent things that it kind of put emphasis on with the movement of the world for the Asura was that they were kind of seeping into the cracks of society all over Tyria and kind of slowly manipulating all the races from within and trying to spread and have dominance over everyone. It was this really kind of weird take there on the Asura. I feel like that's kind of been lost a little bit as lore's been refined and changed over the years since the movement of the world, and now the Asura are kind of something slightly different. But you can still hear that this idea that the Asura are now on the surface, and with them this represents all the change that suddenly happened, you know, which is a direct result of the Elder Dragons, which are the main threat of the second game. So that's still kind of there, but I don't think that that kind of spin that they put on it back then is still going on. Movement of the world, as I said, we will be going through the movement of the world probably once we finish this stuff. I think the movement of the world will probably fit in quite nicely. We can just keep doing challenge missions, stuff like this. I might even start putting Guild Wars 2 gameplay stuff over these if we run out of challenge missions, or if we don't really get enough people coming up for them. So we'll see. The Asuran's essence can be summarized thus: nobody is prepared for the Asura except the Asura. The little people themselves were originally conceived as scrawny, creepy, golem-like gnomey creatures with pointy red hats, arcane mutterings, and pale skin. This doesn't surprise me that their original designs for the Asura had them looking a little bit like gnomes, given what I kind of believe they were trying to achieve with their 5 races, trying to hit those different archetypes. I definitely think, you know, they'd made the dwarves extinct and said, right, we're not going with traditional fantasy races, but we still want a short race. Okay, well, let's look at other games. Okay, gnomes are pretty big, all these different things. So I can see that, and in fact, as we go through this post, you'll see it relies quite heavily on the images and the different bits of concept art. So there will be lots of them going. Oh yeah, and then they did a speed drawing of an Asura. Oh yeah, that's awesome. I'll link to that. I won't put it directly in this video, but I'll leave a description down to it. It's so good. It's just this guy doing a speed drawing of the Asura. It's so cool. But that's later anyway. So yeah, they were originally conceived as golem-like gnomey creatures. They were to be mischievous, dwelling on the fringes of society, scavenging mysterious artifacts of their advanced neighbours. They sound very much like the script in these original descriptions. This was my first crack at the Asura, says Matthew, before they've been given a larger part of the story. Note the idol he wears as a pendant. Okay, so there you go, that's that on screen. And yeah, he's got like forks and spoons and stuff. It sounds very much like the script, really. Their role in the story changed, however, and demanded that their appearance reflect a deeper complexity. The Asura were to be underestimated by the first Sunsiders to encounter them. For this new role, the Asura needed to be at least a little sympathetic, or even cute, but not too cute. This is a point of contention for me. If you watch me play through Eye of the North, this was... I didn't want cute Asura. The Asura in Guild Wars 1 had black, dark eyes, shark teeth, these huge ears. Oh, they were just... The design was so good. But Guild Wars 2 has made them very cute, honestly. But although they claim that they're not too cute, but okay, yeah, that's fine. They needed to give the impression that condescension would be imprudent. Thus, they gained their present feline, reptilian, alien aspects. Right. This next Asuran design was headed in the right direction, but it's really creepy. It's got an alien look, but it's not even slightly cute, nor does it suggest anything resembling ambition. And yeah, it does look kind of scary, I guess. I mean, I've always wondered if they could put these kinds of designs here that have been developed and are now essentially scrapped and useless. I reckon they should just transform them into like enemies that aren't necessarily Asura, or, you know, write stories about how there are some kind of demented Asura somewhere, or, you know, something weird like that. Because it always seems like a bit of a shame that even though you've got this really creepy guy here, his design could fit the role of another race really quite well, couldn't it? But then I guess it's a question of resources. You can have the artists draw all kinds of concept art, but you're not going to be able to realise all of it in game. Physically, Asura are most intimidating, with scrawny shoulders, pencil necks, and short legs. All hands and feet and noggin. At first glance, one might see a childlike individual, with wide-set eyes, a round head, and stumpy legs that waddle run in the most adorable way. Yeah, the animations, in case you guys aren't familiar, are a huge part of the Asura. There's a design problem. He might go on to talk about it later, but I'm pretty sure this was more of an interview thing. There was a real design problem with the Asura, and it happens in most games, not just MMOs, just games where you have a really small race where everyone has to move at the same speed. You tend to find that the smaller races have animation cycles that run much quicker, so their legs will be spazzing all over the place for them to cover the same kind of distance, right? So what ArenaNet did, and it must have been in an interview they talked about, or maybe it was a later blog post in this week, they talked about all the stuff they had to do with the Asuran animation to try and make it work and make it look believable, and really that was a big reason why they ended up making the Asura have this kind of very deliberate comedy style to them, so that people could see an Asuran Guardian use a leap attack, for instance, that gives you the same distance regardless of what race you're on. As a Norn, that leap might not look too bizarre because, you know, it could be, the Norn could feasibly jump that distance, but as a tiny little Asura jumping that far, it could look really weird. But ArenaNet essentially developed this animation set that quite clearly make light of the fact these are ridiculous movements that they're doing, and just made it quite funny and really special, I think. I think that the Asuran animations have definitely had the most love put into them, and for good reason as well. So when you do look at the Asura in action, you really can tell, and it's pretty good. So to return to the post, he just described that the Asura waddle run in the most adorable of ways. And then he says, however, look any longer and one will see the disdainful, scheming eyes, the unsympathetic reptilian mouth, generally sophisticated, gremlin-like bearing, and the 5-meter tall stone golem standing behind him. You don't want to call the Asura cute unless you want to see how hard that golem can clamp your throat while a mad genius gremlin hisses insults into your eyes from between pointed reptilian teeth. This is really cool. That's the Asura I like. Those are the Asura I want. When I do make an Asura, you can bet your ass it's going to look as demented and ugly and scheming and manipulative as I possibly can make it, and I can't wait to do it. The thing is, it says here, like, you would never want to call an Asura cute. I'm assuming that some Asura wouldn't hate it that much. Thing is, you will find out Asuran society is very much governed, and it's perfectly normal for them, and this is just the way life is for them. They all undermine not just other races but each other as well, and they're always biting at each other's and making underhanded comments all over the place. That's just the way their culture works. So I wonder if there is anything to them as a straight up compliment. Like would you ever see an Asura walk up to another and call her cute or call him cute? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever seen or heard of anything like that, particularly not in the books or Guild Wars 1 anyway. This Asura design popped out one morning, the first thing I drew that day, and I knew that I'd nailed it. This would be the Asura. Alright, so but what he's talking about here, in case this isn't clear, this is obviously stories from before Eye of the North. Like, the Asura design was settled on mostly, for the most part, in Eye of the North. And this picture here, actually, I do think we had access to before this blog post came out. It's definitely a very familiar picture to me. But he says, now that you've seen some of the concept art behind the design of the Asura, I thought you might like to watch how I draw these little guys. We've put together a video that shows the creation of a piece of Asura concept art in Photoshop in quasi-real time. Narrated by yours truly. Take a look. This is an awesome video. I remember seeing this a while ago. It is very cool, guys. I'm not gonna cut it directly into my video. That feels a little bit cheap to me. I've noticed there are quite a few people out there who have got like Guild Wars channels, but all they do is just upload the trailers and stuff, and even leaks as well, and I think that's such a shame. So I'm not going to do that, but in the description there will be a link to the video, so if you want to check it out, I definitely do recommend it. It's ArenaNet have got award-winning artists, right? Their artists are just absolutely amazing, and the game oozes a beautiful art direction, and it comes from these guys. So if you want to see how they work, if you like Photoshop yourself, you consider yourself something of an artist, you'll probably even if you're not, like I've never really used Photoshop in my life, but you can appreciate how good this guy is, and just the image and the picture that comes out in the end is really good. So yeah, I recommend it. Anyway, this post ends with one last bit of concept art. I think this is the one that's drawn actually in the video. Should I put it up and spoil it for you guys? Yeah, alright, there you go. So that's the concept art. And Matthew ends by saying, this is our final piece of Asuran concept art. That round head is full of ambitious, feverishly analytical brain. This is an entire race of mad scientists hellbent on world domination, and designing their material culture is as daunting and subtle as a finger on a missile switch. That's the subject for my next post. Alright, so there you go, guys. That's, I guess, a bit of an intro to Asura Week. Not like the other lore posts we've really been doing. The next one is called Mr. Sparkles, A Tale of the Asura. What they did for Asura Week, and we'll talk about this next episode, but they had an original story. When they first kind of were devising these races, they had stories written about them that kind of summed up the races in one way or another. And as time went on, and as lore, as I said earlier, was refined and changed, a lot of the stories became obsolete and they didn't make much sense anymore. However, with the Asura, the story they wrote all that time ago was still relevant. So what they did with Asura Week, I believe, was we actually got 2 stories from Asura Week where they published the original one, as well as one that they've written more recently. And the original one is called Mr. Sparkles, A Tale of the Asura. And that's what we'll open up the next video with, guys. I'm looking forward to it. The entire post is a story, so hopefully I read it out okay. Nobody's actually complained to me about my, the little story segments in the other blog posts, so I'm assuming you guys think I'm okay at it. That's basically what the entire entire next one's going to be. I'll probably comment as I go through it though, so that it will be a little bit different in that way. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe a little bit of a shorter one than what we were expecting with the dungeon series, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much to everyone who came for the challenge mission. Do keep an eye out, as I said, on my Twitter. I'll probably be tweeting about another one soon enough. I want to do one of the ones in the Jade Sea or the Akavald Forest next. You know, those ones really low down. So yeah, I hope to see you guys there, and I guess I'll see you next time. See you later, everybody.